Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro, friends. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, I want to talk about something that I think could elevate us as an industry. I want us to think about the idea of this important question: what don't I know? This has become particularly important throughout the research that I've been doing for the coffee supply chain and the podcasts that I've been looking at putting together, trying to understand who we should have come and talk to us about this coffee crisis that we've got. It's also been something that's helped me keep my guard down when people are volunteering information without being asked. If you were in the coffee industry even 6+ years ago, it was worse when I started about 15, 17 years ago. But it was almost as though we had no idea how to admit we didn't know anything. Tim Windelbow and I talked about it on the podcast when he was on a couple of weeks ago. We all had this problem admitting what we didn't know. And I have personally found, particularly since having this podcast, and it's a major reason why I have the podcast, I really want to step out of ego and step into the idea that there is so much I don't know, and I want to own that I don't know it and learn about it. Letting go of this has been really helpful for me in welcoming in new information. And the consequence of that has been to get a real grasp for an understanding of how much I have to learn about the coffee supply chain, about brewing coffee, but more importantly, it's given me a deep understanding of how little we know as an industry about a lot of things. The more I dig, the more I realize that we don't really have any experts on the end-to-end coffee supply chain. So we have people who know lots about trading on the sea market. We have lots of people that know about purchasing from origin. We have lots of people who know about what it is to understand how to run a cafe and brew coffee and serve coffee and roast coffee and deliver coffee and market coffee and do all of this. But I've never met anybody who can tell you about the complete coffee supply chain. And that's a problem. It's a real problem. Like, you've got the Tim Windelbows and the Sasha Sestiks who are roasters. They own their own cafes. They own coffee farms. And they know more than most about the coffee supply chain. But you really don't meet anyone that knows about the whole coffee supply chain. And we as an industry have to get better at asking questions of each other and engaging in conversation, engaging in discourse, respectful discourse around these subjects. I got caught off guard the other day. It was, a couple of hours before I was having the conversation with Stephen Bannister and Felipe Croce on the episode that we had about the sea market and its relationship to the coffee supply chain. If you haven't listened to it, it's epic, super dense, lots of information, and you'll probably need to listen to it a couple of times. But a couple of hours before that, I got a DM from the Australian Brewers Cup champ, Yanina. And Yanina and I hadn't really talked that much beforehand, but I was really excited about having her on the podcast because Yanina is just doing some amazing work. Now, I was actually really nervous before that podcast, and my mind, I wasn't in the best mind frame to receive new information. I was just solely focused on don't fuck up this podcast. And I was getting pelted left, right, and center from people telling me one, make sure you don't fuck this conversation up is really important to the industry. And two, throwing all of this information at me. And so I kind of thought, I don't want to read any more DMs. Lots of people are giving me information. But I did read Yanina's, and Yanina said something and I misinterpreted it and was completely closed off to hearing what she had to say, which was a very generous act from her to give me information about something I hadn't considered. And so I didn't treat her with as much respect as she deserved. Mind you, Yanina knows nothing about this. Yanina didn't take it as Lee's upset or anything like that. It was just the way I perceived the way that I acted, right? And I had my back up about it. But what I should have done was, first of all, I shouldn't have looked at any DMs before that episode, but I did. And what I should have done was been more open to receiving the information that I was receiving. And so what Yanina had said to me was, with the hashtag that we've started, the campaign, This Is Your Coffee Farmer, she had said, you shouldn't be telling people to just go out there and publish the prices that they have paid for coffees without seeking confirmation and approval from the farmers that it's okay to do that. Completely reasonable. In fact, it's not just reasonable, it's correct. We should be making sure that the farmers that we're paying should be okay with us sharing the price. I hadn't thought about that. I didn't know it wasn't something that I didn't know to state obviously. I just thought it was assumed. Like, well, of course you're not going to publish, excuse me, of course you're not going to publish a price without a customer knowing. And Yanina was being really gracious in pointing that out. I was being an asshole by saying, well, of course people aren't going to publish the price without getting permission. You know, like, I thought she was attacking me. And of course she wasn't. It was my mindset. It was my inabilities to step into what don't I know that created me to act less than gracious about that situation. And so, first of all, publicly, Yanina, I know you have no idea that I feel like I fucked up, but I fucked up. And I'm sorry about that. And I have a lot of respect for you. And I think our industry is really lucky to have you. And second of all, I appreciate the fact that we have people like you that are willing to say, hey, listen, I think what you're doing is awesome, but this is how I think we can add to that. Because that's what's going to be what drives our industry further. I don't know what I don't know. But when other people tell me, hey, Lee, have you considered this? Because they have the balls to step into discourse and conversation, that's when we drive the conversation forward. I have to be willing to participate in that. I have to be willing to always be ready to receive information. And again, like being fair to myself, I was about to do the biggest podcast that I've ever done. That I knew it was going to get an enormous amount of attention, and I was just really nervous and making sure that I didn't, screw this up, because it was really important to me. It was really important to the industry. So, hey, I wouldn't normally have acted like that. I wouldn't, and I didn't. It's not like I said, fuck you, Yanina, like I don't want to hear anything you've got to say. I just assumed she was attacking, and she wasn't in any way, shape or form. And so it's great. I learnt from it, but it also helped me in preparing myself for, hey, listen, when people offer you information, you crazy woman, like, don't assume that it's for any other reason than for them to further your experience, to further your knowledge. I think my experience in the coffee industry, a lot of it has been about people attacking for one reason or another. And I've got to let that go. We as an industry need to let go of the fact that we're typically assholes to each other when we're exchanging information. That needs to stop. Let's elevate our experience of information exchange, because all of us have something that we can contribute to somebody else's understanding of the coffee supply chain, of our own experience, of what we have gone through in the coffee supply chain, and ideas of how we might be able to elevate the coffee supply chain. That means that we all hold value to elevating somebody else's experience in the coffee industry, and we should step into it. Have an amazing rest of your day, friends. Peace, love, and peanut butter.